Good evening. Welcome to Borough Hall. There are 3 items on the agenda this evening. Please note that this hearing is being recorded to comply with the public law for transparency. It will be available for viewing on the Borough Presidents website, brooklyn-usa.org, or on the One Brooklyn channel on YouTube. Web viewers may submit timely comments to Ask Eric at brooklynbp.nyc.gov for the Borough President's consideration. I will call the first item for the agenda.
Calendar item number 1, Nuestros Niños Child Development Center, 160133 PQK.
Okay, and for this item, I just want to recognize staff from Councilmember Reynosa, Jennifer Gutierrez has joined us. Okay, so this application has been submitted by the Administration for Children's Services, and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services seeks approval for the acquisition of privately owned property at 384 South 4th Street within the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn in Community District 1. Such action will facilitate a lease renewal for a 10-year term to ensure continued provision of child care services. Community Board 1 approved this application without conditions on August 9, 2016 with the representative for the application, Allison Grant. Please state your name for the record and come up to the mic, present the application.
Good evening. Is this on? Okay. Thank you for having us here. We're happy to speak. My name is Allison Grant. I am the Chief of Staff at the ACS Division of Early Care and Education. And ACS is here tonight in favor of the continued use of this space at 384 South 4th Street as a daycare center. I'm here to talk about a little bit about the program and about the site itself, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you have. Briefly, I will just give a slight overview. This is a child care program. This is part of our Early Learn system where we provide subsidized child care to children under the age of 5 throughout the 5 boroughs. Obviously, this program is here in Brooklyn where the great majority of our programs exist. We have 140 seats at the site. We serve preschoolers and some toddlers as well, and I look forward to answering any of your questions.
Thank you. It is in the interest of the community for daycare facilities to serve neighborhood residents. What is the number of contract seats and what is the criteria for selecting children to attend the center when vacancies arise? And for both contracted and uncontracted seats, how that may vary? And also, how many private cross-subsidized seats are set aside for this location?
Sure. So as I mentioned briefly, there are 140 seats contracted for early learn services at the site, 20 for toddlers, which are typically 2 to 3-year-olds, and 120 for preschoolers, which are 3 and 4-year-olds, which includes pre-K for all seats, which within our early learn contract. Currently, there are 18 to 20 toddler seats are filled, so there are 2 vacancies as of last week, and about 2/3 of the preschool seats are currently enrolled. But during August, it should be noted that there is a big time of churn and turnover because children are leaving to move on to kindergarten or pre-K at a different site if they choose. So we expect that within a month, the enrollment will likely be much closer to full capacity. There are no infants at this site. In terms of non-contracted seats, ACS can only speak to the contracted capacity. Of course, we encourage programs if they have extra capacity at their site to serve other children, but I don't have any information on that.
Okay, thank you. And the borough president has been concerned regarding the city lease terms not being as long as they had been in the past, and the concern has been based on the fact that there are, in certain neighborhoods, such as in Williamsburg, this site particular, landlords having more financially lucrative opportunities, and so therefore we've had concern, Borough President Adams has been concerned about daycare facilities being at risk for losing their space, no longer continuing their leases, and then not being able to serve the communities. So. We've had recent examples in both Bushwick and Williamsburg where we've had such reduction in services or at least threat of reduction. And so in this particular case, what is the anticipated duration of the lease with renewals in terms of rights the city would have for renewal?
Right. And I agree. We at ACS never like to close the child care center. Luckily, we are starting to see the results of this administration's goal to keep centers open for as long as possible. In the last administration, we kept leases at 5 years. This lease once it's executed, will last through January 31st of 2026, showing the administration and ACS's dedication to keeping the center open. This is a 10-year lease with a 5-year renewal term included. If we so choose to exercise it, at this point in time, we choose to, but it's only 2016, so we'll be able to speak further to that in about a decade from now. And the last lease was 15 years, so this reflects the same length, and we're happy to say that this is a longer lease, and that's how we expect to move forward with all leases in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate the extension of the leases.
Yes, as do we.
And part of the Borough President's vision has been for Brooklyn to have beautification of our streets while addressing best stormwater management practice. And considering the building's frontage, which is part of the Newtown Creek Water Pollution Control Area, what consideration has been given to incorporating streetscape improvements, including those that advance best stormwater management practices, such as utilization of bioswales, which are part of DEP's green water strategies, and in terms of the landlord participating in terms of upkeep?
Right. So in each of our city lease sites, we work with our landlord to make sure that the center is as appealing as possible, and specifically in cases like this, beautification and working to improve environmental impacts. New York City Parks Department is who we go to do that work. And historically, the process typically is that the Parks Department will identify a building for beautification or for this different kinds of use for environmental improvements, and then they will approach ACS, and we in turn will approach the landlord. We're always open to these changes, and we feel they're very positive for the community and the program itself.
So in this case, because you've had a history of going through parks and you think of parks as more about tree plantings, does your conversation with parks lead to a conversation with DEP, or might it make sense to also engage with DEP moving forward in terms of where there may be opportunities in terms of their green water program to promote bioswales?
Yeah, I think it would make sense to engage with DEP, and I think we typically work through parks, but we'll make an effort to speak with anyone involved who should be in the conversation.
Right. And again, where it ties into your the landlord is whether there may be a need for some level of maintenance of the bioswale if the city agencies fund it.
Right. Thank you.
And it's the Borough President's policy to maximize job opportunities for Brooklynites within local businesses, and these centers are definitely economic engines of employment.
Definitely.
And so when hiring or apprentice opportunities arise, how does the individual daycare center, in this case, go about filling such opportunities, and what steps might be taken in the future to promote locally based hiring?
Yeah, we have, ACS has a contract with the Daycare Council of New York to assist all of our programs in filling any vacancies. And we always encourage our programs to facilitate the Daycare Council's websites, as well as if they're a Head Start program, which this one's not, but any others to use the Head Start Sponsoring Board Council website as well. So in this case, there's a relationship between the employers, meaning the program, and the Daycare Council.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have no further questions on this item. We do have one speaker, Jennifer Gutierrez. If you could come up and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Gutierrez. I'm here representing Councilmember Reynoso. I want to start off by saying that we are in support of this project, and we're so grateful that ACS has been a partner in working with DCAS to secure a long-term lease and securing the site here in the South Side. The council member is actually a proud alum of Nuestros Niños. So aside from him representing his district and the potential 140 families, this was definitely a personal project for him. Richard brought up a lot of questions that the council member shares in, as similarly just the longer contracts that had been done historically. I think for me, my only question would be capital investment into the building and the potential for those conversations down the line. Other than that, again, we'd like to support the project. We want to recognize ACS and DCAS and the city overall for partnering with our community to make it a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have no other questions for this item, so we'll close out the first item. I'm going to ask Olga to call the next calendar item.
Calendar item number 2, Children's Corner Child Care Center, 150420 PQK.
This application submitted by the Administration for Children's Services and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services seeks approval for the acquisition of privately owned property at 565 Livonia Avenue within the East New York section of Brooklyn in Community District 5. Such action will facilitate a lease renewal to ensure continued provision of child care services. Community Board 5 did not take a position on this item with the representative for the application, Allison Grant. Again, state your name for the record and present the application.
Hello. Thank you. My name is Allison Grant, and I'm the Chief of Staff for the Division of Early Care and Education at the city's Administration for Children's Services. I am here today to speak in favor of the continued use of the space at 565 Livonia Avenue as a daycare center. I'll speak briefly on the program and then take any questions that you have. This is a program that is child care funded through Early Learn System, where we serve children under the age of 5, daycare 5 days a week, 12 months a year from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you. And as in the first item, to go on record again for consistency regarding the number of contracted seats, and if there are any privatized subsidized seats, and again, any criteria that may differ from the first item in terms of dealing with the vacancies for the center.
Great. So the center is contracted for 181 seats, 36 toddler seats, which are for 2 to 3-year-olds typically, and 145 preschool seats, which are 3 and 4-year-olds, including 4-year-olds that are part of Pre-K for All, the Early Learn site. As of last week, 27 of the 36 toddler seats were enrolled, meaning there are currently 9 vacancies, and that's 3 classrooms, so there's about half a classroom is empty. And of the 145 preschoolers, 105 seats are currently enrolled, and as I said previously, those 40 vacancies will likely be filled in the coming months as the new school year starts. The first day of the DOE school year is next Thursday, September 8th. So it's a current enrollment of about 3/4 of the system at that site. Child care subsidized seats are required families to have 200% of the federal poverty level and a reason for care, which I neglected to say earlier, so I apologize. In terms of private seats, as I said before, ACS only tracks the contracted seats at each site, and of course we encourage programs, if they have the space, to fill their extra seats with other children that beyond the contracted system.
Thank you. And also, as we mentioned, in the issue about displacement, so if you could again clarify for this particular site the term of the lease and renewals, just for the record.
So this is a lease term that is 10 years from May 1st, 2016, going through April 30th of 2026. Again, a 10-year lease because that is the administration's goal, to make all leases long-term. Currently, we are under a license pending ULURP approval to exercise the lease option. So as soon as that's approved, the lease will automatically begin. The last lease had been 20 years. This one is 10 years with options to renew in the future.
And so it'll be the same 5-year renewal?
I believe so, but let me get back to you.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that the past one be 20 years. So in the context of 5-year renewals, the possibility of perhaps multiple 5 years, might that be in the structure?
That is sometimes the case. I'll have to confer with DCAS, who was not able to make it tonight.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Of course.
And also had mentioned previous items, some similarities. Given the building's street frontage, incorporating streetscape improvements, including those that are involved best practice for stormwater management through the utilization of bioswales in terms of looking into the possibility for this site, if that also be done, if you could share any thoughts on that.
Yeah, we'll make sure to work with DEP and Department of Parks as appropriate.
And just to let you know, this area, as part of the adopted plan for East New York,
Yes.
there was a lot of commitment through DEP, especially in the industrial area, for probably close to 200, I forget the exact number of bioswales and similar treatments added.
Okay.
So the city is definitely doing a lot of investment towards gray water strategies for the 26 wards. So this seems to have an opportunity to fit right into that initiative.
Great, thank you.
And for this particular site, part of the Borough Presidents Cross Brooklyn initiative, which is connecting residents on safer streets, the Borough President believes that making street crossings safer for children and seniors should be a priority. And this center has a corner location along Livonia within close proximity to the Pennsylvania Avenue station, which might lead to perhaps some of the children arriving with their parents first by the subway, walking those few blocks, that this seems to provide an opportunity to improve street safety along Livonia Avenue by introducing curb extensions at these pedestrian crossings. So what steps might ACS take that might help address to bring a Cross Brooklyn initiative to this site?
The safety of all children as well as seniors and other community members is always a top priority of ACS, so we share that concern and priority with the Borough President, and we appreciate that. We will work with the Department of Transportation as appropriate to ensure that pedestrian safety is the first topic and priority, especially for sites like this.
Okay, thank you. And then similar to the prior agenda item, in terms of the hiring, if you go on record again, I guess it's a similar answer regarding efforts towards hiring, promoting locally based hiring.
Yeah, of course, as I said previously, every program that is a child care program such as this one works with the Daycare Council of New York to ensure that all job postings are listed online, and we encourage our programs to look to the local community as well.
Thank you. So I have no further questions, and I have no more speakers for this item. Nobody's listed, so if you'd like to stay or you'd like to take a seat for a moment, we'll close out calendar item 2, and we'll go if you could call calendar item 3.
Calendar item number 3, Friends of Crown Heights Child Care Center, number 18, 16007 PQK.
This application submitted by the Administration for Children's Services and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services seeks approval for the acquisition of privately owned property at 851 Liberty Avenue within the East New York section of Brooklyn in Community District 5. Such action will facilitate a lease renewal to ensure continued provision of child care services. Community Board 5 did not take a position on this item. With the representative for this application, Allison Grant. Please state your name again for the record and present the application.
Hello, my name is Allison Grant, and I'm the Chief of Staff for the ACS Division of Early Care and Education. I'm here this evening to state that ACS is in favor of the continued use of this space at 851 Liberty Avenue as a daycare center. The site is currently has care being provided by the Friends of Crown Heights Educational Centers, and this is a child care program, meaning that all children being served are under the age of 5 and their families are at up to 200% of the federal poverty level and have a reason for care. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. So as we've mentioned the other 2 items in terms of the contracted seats and if there are privately cross-subsidized, and again, the criteria for the vacancies.
Right. So this site has 95 contracted preschool seats, meaning 3 and 4-year-olds. As of last week, 84 of the seats were enrolled, meaning that the program is at 88% enrollment. The rest of the seats, there will be some churn over the next few weeks with the start of the school year, as I spoke to previously on other sites. So we expect the same, if not higher, enrollment in the coming months at this program. And as before, there may be private seats at the site. We always encourage our programs to fill if there's extra seats beyond the contracted size, and we do not have any information on those private seats.
Thank you. And also mention the issue of our concern about displacement and duration. If you go on record with the duration of this lease and the rights for renew.
Yes, this lease is a 10-year lease from completion of all improvements on the site. We're currently under a license pending the ULURP approval to exercise a lease option. And so it'll be through hopefully 2026, or as soon as the work is done, it will be from that date. I'm not sure the exact date of work completion that is scheduled at this time. And there will be renewals, and I can get back to you regarding how many renewal periods there are.
Thank you. And given the center's location at Liberty, corner location actually, and opportunity to improve street safety as mentioned with the curb extensions per the Borough Presidents Cross Brooklyn initiative, if you could talk about steps that might be taken by your agency to prepare so that this particular intersection might have those more pedestrian-friendly crossings.
As I said, ACS and the city share the Borough President's desire and priority to keep all citizens and residents safe beyond children and seniors, all families. And we will work with the Department of Transportation as needed to ensure that that safety is kept.
Okay, thank you. And it's Borough President's understanding that the center, there's interest in potentially using the rooftop space as a play area in the future. And we understand that there's a play area at grade level adjacent on a separate city-owned lot. And we'd like to understand that, is the center looking to have the daycare play space completely relocated from the grade level space to the roof, or is there a thought to have both spaces available to the center?
As of this time, the city is not going to be renting the roof. We will be continuing to use the lot next door or adjacent to the building as our child care's playground. And if anything changes, we will let you know.
And would changes be based on the availability of capital dollars made available that you can modify the lease? What would trigger the rooftop being of interest to being developed there?
I think the only trigger would be if the lot were to not be available. At this time, the lot is the preferred use of the center, and we continue to have that be the playground for the center.
So that is the preference, not to ever move it to the roof?
Yeah, many of our sites do use rooftop playgrounds, but at this time, my understanding is that there is no intention to move the playground to the roof, and we're going to continue using the lot next door.
And that would not be a preference to ever have the roof as the alternative?
At this time, it's not, but that might change in the future. I don't want to say it won't ever change.
Like what typically might change that? Like, in other words, if the city decided they wanted to use their land as a different kind of resource, as opposed to a preference for the agency in terms of having the children move straight up vertically versus going,
right?
Because I believe is there a door between the center and the lot, or are the children first going out to the street and then walking into the lot?
Do you want to answer that? Sorry, I don't know that answer.
That's quite all right. We're figuring this out as we talk about it. But if you could get back to us.
Yeah, we'll get back to you. I will say in some other of our programs, sometimes a lot will be identified for maybe an older age group or a different group altogether to use. I know that. I don't. Okay. To use the space, and then the ACS will be asked to use a rooftop instead to make sure that there's maximum usage of all space that we have accessible to us. But at this time, the only answer I have is that right now we use a lot. I will find out about how they access the playground and get back to you, and I'll also find out what other triggers there might exist beyond other city need.
Right. Because the question is whether there's a logistical preference for the children to go from private domain of the building space into the private domain of the city lease set aside as a play lot versus going out into the street sidewalk, the public domain, and then through an entrance into the lot.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Some logistical preference.
I'll look into that.
Thank you. And also, as you mentioned in the prior item regarding the building's frontage, and in terms of opportunities looked at for streetscape improvements, including those that deal with best stormwater management practices and utilization of bioswales. This area is to the east of the area where the city is known to be making the investment for the East New York plan, as opposed to the other site was directly south, but it still serves the same water pollution control plan. So again, if you could share thoughts about that.
Sure. So when we reach out to DEP regarding the other sites, and specifically regarding 565 Livonia, we'll make sure to mention 851 Liberty Avenue as well.
Thank you. And finally, in terms of steps being taken in terms of the local hiring, I guess the same answer, but if you could go on record to say that again.
So of course, all of our programs, including Friends of Crown Heights, work with the Daycare Council of New York to address any staff vacancies by using their website and other uses that the Daycare Council makes available to the programs that are part of their system.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, and I have no speakers signed up for this item. Great. So I will be closing the hearing.
Thank you.
The hearing on this item is now closed. Thank you for participating in this public hearing. Borough President Adams will review the applications we heard today and soon submit his recommendation to the City Planning Commission. Borough President Adams would like to take this opportunity to remind you that the City Planning Commission will hold public hearings on all three items that we heard today. The hearings are now adjourned. And Borough President Adams would like to remind those viewing on the website that timely comments can be submitted by email to askeric, at brooklynbp.nyc.gov. Thank you.